Okay, so we have a document about the alternate attendance system in Tokugawa time period in Japan. So let's go through content through documents. How does this document reinforce what we've already learned, and what new information can we learn from this document that we didn't talk about before when learning about the alternate attendance system? Here we go. The alternate attendance system was a device of the Tokugawa shogunate, the government of Japan from 1603 to 1868. Couple hundred years. It was designed to ensure political control by the regime, the leadership, the Tokugawa, the shogun, designed to ensure political control by the regime over the daimyo, or territorial lords, who exercised virtually autonomous authority, total control over more than 260 feudal states into which 4/5 of the country was divided. Okay, so that's some interesting information there. Yes, the Tokugawa shogun technically ruled all of Japan, but 4/5 of the country was out of his direct control. 260 states, each one ruled by a daimyo, a lord, right? So it's the shogun has, quote, authority over those lords, and those lords have authority over the states. So if you're the shogun, you're going to want to have as much authority over those feudal lords, those daimyos, that you can, because then you truly do have the power. So whole thing is set up to have authority over those lords. Under the system, most of the daimyo were required to travel. They were forced to travel every 2 years from their home domains where they had power to the capital of the Tokugawa shogunate at Edo, present-day Tokyo. Remember, the shogun made the new capital at Edo so he could totally control the city. And the lords had to spend alternate years in person, personal attendance at the shogunal court. So every 2 years they have to spend time in Edo. Each daimyo was also required to maintain residences at the capital. So they have to have a residence all the time, a house, a complex at the capital all the time. And that's where the lord's wife and children were permanently detained. So that's like we learned before, as the lords go back to their states, their families stayed at Edo, kind of like, and by kind of like, we mean exactly like, a hostage situation. So the shogun had control over the family of the lords. Another important contribution of the operation of the alternate attendance system was to the modernization of Japan, was to promote the intellectual and cultural unification of the country. Okay, so there's a new claim, that the system is going to unify Japan intellectually and culturally. So because of this system, the author is claiming that Japan will become more united in thought. And we know this is true. The Tokugawa shogunate really united all of Japan under a very dominant Japanese culture. It was very, very together, intellectually and culturally. The system, the attendance system, served to bring a large part of the leadership elements from the whole country together in one place, and to keep a constant stream of leaders and intellectuals moving back and forth between the capital and all parts of the country. Yes, remember, it's not just the daimyo, the lord, that goes back and forth. The lord brings his samurai, which are highly educated, brings servants. So you have an intense amount of people moving from one state of the country to the capital we get this on biennial every couple of years. We have a very big movement. This was important in giving Japan tremendous intellectual unity for which it faced the West in the 19th century. Yes, Japan was united because when those lords are in the capital of Edo, when those lords live in Edo, they are all sharing knowledge, all sharing intellectual, all sharing culture. All those lords and samurai are absorbing it. And then when the lords go back to their home states, they are now spreading that common culture back across 260 different states of Japan. And you better believe that all those people that lived in those feudal states, when the daimyo came back, you better believe everyone was super excited to learn about what's the Edo culture. What's going on in the capital city. And so if there's something new, if there's new learning, if there's new theater, if there's new education, if there's new ways of doing things, it gets spread every couple years all over Japan. The same Edo culture gets spread. It also enabled the people at large to have a stronger sense of national unity than would have been the case had the system not existed. Yeah, it's just this national capital of Edo is just spreading itself out, and its nationalism and its identity all over Japan. By serving as the vehicle which spread the culture of Edo and Osaka to the countryside, the system influenced the diffusion of a truly national culture. Yes, and one of those things that we see when Japan opens up to the rest of the world, when Japan in 1868, around that time, when Japan looks to all over the world, Japan is so strong in their own understanding of their own culture. They are able to incorporate many different things, such as factories, an education system, the idea of a military navy. They are able to take so much information from Germany, England, the United States, all over, yet still retain an intensely nationalistic, unified Japanese culture. It was an incredibly powerful modernization and westernization. And they were able to do that because when they decided to do that, they were already, because of this one reason of the alternate attendance system, an incredibly strong, powerful culture. All right. That's our content through document. Okay, let's do the multiple choice questions that came along with this document. Multiple choice. Choose the best answer that is supported by the document. What was an important contribution of the alternate attendance system to the modernization of Japan? Okay, from the document, I remember it saying that it unified the country. I remember it saying that the system unified the country and made them intellectually unified. Let's see with the answers. 1, Japan. Japan's people developed a stronger sense of national cultural unity. Okay, that's the answer. National, there you go. Truly a national culture and unified. But let's check the other answers. 2, Japan's government established control over Western intellectuals forced to live in Osaka. No, it doesn't say anything. It only mentions Osaka once, and it's all about the daimyo moving back and forth. It doesn't say anything about Western intellectuals, so no on 2. 3, Japan improved its railroad system by connecting. No. Has nothing to do with railroad system. So even if this were true, we probably wouldn't want to be doing it. There's just no evidence in here about the railroad system. Okay. Japan increased the power of the daimyo during the Tokugawa shogunate. Okay, this is a definitely number 1. It's not true. And number 2, it's the exact opposite. It's the shogun increasing power over the daimyo, not Japan increased the power of the daimyo. No, the shogun has the power. So yes, number 1 was the answer. Great. The purpose of the Tokugawa's alternate attendance system is similar to the purpose of, well, I already know that we compare Louis XIV's living in the nobles living in Versailles, the palace. So I already know that's going to be the answer. It could be something else. Let's look. 1, the British suffragettes who demanded Parliament grant women the right to vote. No, the suffragettes want women to have the right to vote. The Tokugawa alternate attendance is the leadership trying to control the daimyo. Nothing similar there. King Louis of France, the 14th, who required nobles stay at Versailles. That's the answer. The end. But let's see. Simón Bolívar, who expected the indigenous people to rise up against the Spanish. That is true. Simón Bolívar did expect people in Latin America to rise up against their Spanish colonial leaders and get independence. That's true, but it's not the same as Tokugawa keeping control. Tokugawa keeps control of the nobles. Simón Bolívar wants to get rid of a king. Not the same. European countries that divided up the African continent. That is a true thing. These are all true things that happen, but are they like similar? A European government taking over African governments, not the same. Not the same as the leader, Tokugawa, actually trying to control his own people. And that's why Louis, the leader of France, tries to control his own people. That's why that is similar. Louis is similar to Tokugawa. Great. Okay, let's pretend that this was a document we're going to ask document questions on. Short answer, document questions. One of the questions could be the historical circumstances. What was going on at the time that led to the document? Well, remember, first thing always, what's our main idea? What's the document really about? That will help us answer these questions. Okay, so the main idea of this document, the main idea is the alternate attendance policy. So it's talking about the alternate attendance policy of the Tokugawa shogunate. So keep that in mind when we answer all of our questions. Okay, so explain the historical circumstances that led to the Tokugawa shogun instituting an alternate attendance policy. Now, Typically, our answer is not in the document. What was going on at the time that caused the shogun to do this alternate attendance policy? Historical circumstances led the shogun to institute the alternate attendance policy. The shogun had recently won the wars for unification of Japan. The shogun had moved the capital to Edo, but the daimyo still had power in their local states. Thus, the shogun wanted to control the daimyo, so he started a policy where they had to live in Edo. This is what was going on in Japan at the time and what was causing the events in the document. Okay? We're not really taking information from the document. We're trying to tell the reader what was going on at the time that led to the events in the document. So for geographic context, we're explaining geography that we see or is brought up in the document. Okay? Now, geography is both nature and people, human geography. So we just got to memorize. Any geographic context could include movement or location of people, countries, location of countries, places, location of places, nature, geography, natural geography, nature, or natural events. Okay? So in a Japan geographic context, we would obviously be looking for the powerful natural events such as volcanoes, hurricanes, earthquakes. Those are the typical tsunamis, typical natural geographic events. But in this document, let's focus in on movement of people because that's human geography. So, explain the geographic context for the historical development shown in this document. So for geographic context, we usually try to find something referenced in the document. We try to do that. But if we happen to know the geography and how it might affect some things in the document and it's not specifically said in the document, we could use it also. But for this one, it's so very clear that it's the movement of people. So we see that in the document, and we're going to do a little textual evidence to help prove it. The alternate attendance policy had a large geographic context associated with it. It caused an almost continual movement of people, that's our geography, right, within the country. And then let's do some textual evidence. 260 daimyo would, quote, travel biennially from their domains to the capital of Edo, end quote. This caused large shifts in Japan's, I'm explaining, I'm going in depth. This caused large shifts in Japan's human geography and location of people. The document tells of the effects of this, right? Movement and location of people. Okay, we're going to, we're basically going to skip over purpose, audience, and bias. Because this seems like an academic paper, possibly included in a book, obviously the purpose is just going to be inform people about the alternate attendance policy. The audience is just going to be anyone who wants to learn about the Tokugawa shogunate, and I don't see any major bias, so it's just going to be academic, and usually some academic writings don't have obvious one-sidedness. They're usually fairly straightforward. So we're not going to get into these three because the answers are not obvious, and for purpose and audience, it's just repetitive, just like from any historical paper. But we definitely can do a point of view. A point of view means the author's opinion on a certain issue. And so I'll pick an issue and we'll try to get the author's opinion on that issue. Now, we have only seen a question that says identify the point of view. And identify means to put a name to. Name it without explanation. So all you got to do is get the right answer and you don't have to explain your answer. So until they change the question, it's still an identify. Okay? Maybe they'll do an explain point of view at some time, but for right now, we have only seen identify. All right, so identify the author's, Sukahira's point of view concerning the alternate attendance policy. So what is the author's opinion on the alternate attendance policy? Okay, so we're going to identify, and there are two answers that I see. One is the author's point of view on the alternate attendance policy was that it was used to ensure political control by the shogun. And the second answer could be, you only need one of them, the author's point of view on the alternate attendance policy was that it created unity and a national culture of Japan. Political control, national culture. You would be fine if you actually did both. Something like the author's point of view was that it was used to ensure political control and that it created a national culture in Japan. That would be a correct answer too. So any one of those would be a correct answer. And if we looked at the document, that's how it's set up. The first paragraph was all about how the policy obtained political control for the shogun, and the second one was all about how it stimulated and unified Japan intellectually and culturally. So there you go. So for a similarity and difference question, we always have another document, Doc 1 and Doc 2. So we tend to use, when we only have one here, we tend to use a pretend document, right? Similarity and difference, how ideas from two documents are alike or different. So here's our document 1 about the alternate attendance. And let's pretend that we have a document that just talks about, in France, the nobles having to live with Louis XIV. And then we can easily do a similarity between the two documents. And so identify a similarity or difference between the leadership of Tokugawa and Louis XIV. Be sure to use information from both documents. So first we identify a similarity or difference, then we explain it, citing both documents. The leadership between the shogun and Louis XIV were similar because they both required nobles to be near them. That's the identify. Now let's explain it and use info. The shogun had an alternate attendance policy where the daimyo were required to spend alternate years in the shogunal court, Doc 1. This is similar to how Louis had his nobles live with him and attend him at the Palace of Versailles, Doc 2. Pretend document. They both had the nobles near and could keep an eye on them. We've explained the similarity. The end. So for turning point and cause and effect, I think it would take we can't do a pretend document. It's too complicated. Turning point, I mean, unification of Japan is a huge turning point, but it's where Japan was entirely unified. We see that because of the alternate attendance policy, but we need another document to show that too. So we're not going to go into that. And a cause and effect, this already does the cause and effect. It says there's an alternate attendance policy, and the effect was a unified, culturally intelligent, unified Japan that shared a common national culture. So this already does a cause and effect inside the document. So we're not going to spend time trying to figure out another document to show a cause and effect. And to finish up, enduring issues, situations, problems, events, concerns, things that societies face that repeat through time and occur in multiple locations. So many societies have had to deal with these enduring issues that are shown in this document. There may be tons more in this document. These are the ones that jump out at me. National culture in nationalism. Okay, unified national culture and nationalism. Leadership power, specifically controlling your opposition. So if you're in power, controlling the opposition, people who want to take power from you. Cultural diffusion. Okay, the idea is spreading out all over Japan, cultural diffusion. And capital cities, the power of a unified central capital city. Capital cities in their power. And those are the major issues that I see. All right, thanks for watching.